Hi friends, it's Julia. I'm here to share a layout that I created with my April 2016 Counterfeit Kit Challenge kit. I started off with a sketch from the Let's Get Sketchy site, and I'm showing it here. It had a big circle on the background and then the singular photo. Okay, so most of you know, if you've watched any of my videos, that I love to use sketches, and I use them all the time. The thing I love most about sketches is that they are a great jumping off point. You don't have to follow them exactly. And if you watch my layouts, you realize when I show the sketches, my layouts hardly ever turn out looking exactly like the sketches that I start with. And that's okay. I'm way okay with that. I think it's creative interpretation when you use a sketch, and you might start off following it exactly, and then somehow or another you just break away. And that's kind of what I do all the time. I think to myself, okay, I'm going to start here, and it really does take the anxiety of where do I put my photo, where do I put my embellishment cluster, where do I put these things to make them look nice. So anyway, back to the layout. I started off with this piece of paper here, and you can see the stack of paper underneath. That's all the paper from my kit. As I was using it, going down through the paper stack that I had there, I just left it all piled up there. And so I took those top 3 sheets of paper and started using those. I think the only one that I really know, I think that one, the black one, is a Close to My Heart, and then the calendar paper is Paper Studio. The other one, it may be an old SEI. I'm not 100% sure on that one. But anyway, in mimicking the circular embellishment, if you will, the circular pattern that was on the back, I thought, okay, we'll bring in multiple layers of paper and then round the corners. I just thought for something different, something fun, just to give it some interest. And I'm just showing you, that's from a very long time ago. I couldn't exactly read the date, but I do know it's from a while ago. So I took this frame, and it's one of those frames that I had bought a whole package off of QVC and had them forever. And so I've been trying to use them little by little. And so I pulled a couple into this kit, and I took a scrap of paper there and layered it right on top of. It had a sentiment right in a word right in the middle of the frame, and I punched that out, and I left the other piece on the inside of the frame and just layered that right over the top. And then I decided I'm going to put my photo down on top of that. So just making the decision that that's how I'm going to place everything. And so I'm one of those people that I firmly believe in, if you find a spot that you feel like it looks good, stick it down. You know, pick it and stick it. I used to watch a lady, I don't think she's making scrapbooking videos anymore, Katie Scott, and that was one of her catchphrases, was pick it and stick it. And, you know, it really does make a layout go much faster. And so here I'm looking for something to be the white border around that photo. I wanted it to have an edge, so I just pulled one of the pattern papers out and I flipped it over, and I'm using the back side of it. And that's a great tip if you have, if you want to have a white border on something and you can't find anything, dig in your scrap bin for one of those single-sided papers that we all have, because it will typically always have a white back, and you can use it for creating borders or creating journaling pieces for whatever. You know, you can use your stash up, use your scraps up. And so I'm kind of thinking, what am I going to use? What else am I going to use to create the embellishment clusters that the sketch had? And I'm looking at that piece thinking, how am I going to use it? I really want to use that piece of paper really bad. I feel like the yellow and orangey feel in the paper are The baby has on a red sweater in there, and then the flowers on the paper are reddish orange. And then the lion in the picture has a yellowish feel to it. So I want to, bring that in as well. But I didn't want to cut it any further. I wanted to hoard it as long as I can. So what I opted to do is pull in those smaller scraps of yellow and put a little bit on top, a little bit on bottom, and I'm still trying to figure out a way I'm going to use that. And I'm going to pull the green in because the grass in the background is it's springtime. This is a springtime photo, and so the grass is just starting to turn green at the zoo. And I wanted to have that little touch of green in there for that reason. And so then I decide, okay, I'm going to cut this piece out here and use that on my layout. And then I get it fussy cut out, and I'm not really keen on it. And then I'm still looking at things, and I don't know where. I'm looking at it as I'm watching the creation of this. I'm thinking, what was I thinking, and piling all this stuff up like this, thinking, am I going to use that like that? It doesn't stay. The life at the bottom does stay, but the other two embellishments don't. And I'm finally trying to figure out, okay, where am I going to use this piece of paper? Because I'm going to use it. I was determined. So, yeah, I love hanging on to the scraps. And I know there are some people in the world that as they cut down scraps, they just throw the smaller pieces away. And I do throw some tiny pieces away, but if I love a paper and I love the pattern, then I'll hoard the little tiny pieces of it. And so that's kind of what I've done with this piece of paper. And it started off on a 6x6 paper pad, and I think it was a Teresa Collins paper pad. And I just loved it so much, and I still think I have like one teeny weeny little piece of that paper left, and I'm not willing to throw it away, even though it's a tiny little piece. I still love it. Using some rub-ons here, and these are older, and they're American crafts, and these are some that if the old American crafts, some of them can be okay, others not so much. And if you kept them in a plastic bag, they tend to stay more preserved, better preserved, and they tend to work a lot better. And so with this one, I had rubbed it all down and then realized how splotchy, because I put it under there, and then I put it along the white paper as well. I wanted it to stick out a little bit further. And it just, bits and pieces of it didn't come off right, and I didn't like it, so I thought, okay, what can I do to cover that up? And so I took this chipboard border strip that I had, and it has a chevron arrow on it, and so I just cut it into that arrow shape and cut a piece off to go right over that area where I put that rub on. And because it was part of a punch out pack of chipboard, it had rough edges on it, so I just went over them with a old fingernail file and just covered that right up. And you can see I'm going through here trying to decide. I found another old rub-on that I've got half left, and I'm thinking, where am I going to use this, because I want to use it someplace. It has that black and red, and there's some blue in it as well. And so I can't think of any place initially, so I just move it to the side and keep going through my embellishments and things. Those are some cork pieces. I want to say they are Paper Studio, and I have used, I think they're started off with 4 frames and little arrows, or what do you, not arrows, pennant shapes along with them. And so then I decide, okay, that's where I'm going to use that, because I left myself a little area at the top of that frame that just did not feel right leaving all of that open. And so I thought, well, I'll fill it with that piece of that rub-on. So I'll just take a second to rub it all on there. And I start off with that rub-on tool, and I think it's a close to my heart rub-on tool. And it works okay for a little bit, but on these older ones, you really have to have a really sharp edge to get them to come off the carrier sheets. And so I did that. I got my the one tool that I use, like that you spread things with, molding paste and that kind of things. I got that tool and used it to rub it down. So I'm using just a little wood veneer on there, and I'm putting those pieces of paper back. Those are the Teresa Collins 6x6 paper pad. Those are the scraps that I have in there. And I don't think I've ever thrown any of those away. I have used those and used those and used those. And even the ones now, they're in a different, I used that paper pad up completely, and I just have a few little scraps left, and they're in my scrap bin. I'm not getting rid of those. I wanted something with some additional blue in it, only because my son is in the background and he's wearing blue jeans and a blue shirt. And because I have the cork down on the bottom, I thought I needed a little more cork. And so I put that heart that's got the black geometric shapes stamped onto it. And I'm looking at my stamps. I had, I think, 4 or 5 stamp sets in this kit. And so I pulled out a sentiment on there, and I'm going to stamp it. And I don't know, I didn't put the foam pad under it. With these acrylic stamps, it's always best to put a foam pad underneath the layout, and it gives you a great, even, smooth application. And I didn't do it, and so I wasn't crazy with it. So then I felt like I needed to cover it up, and I do. I get to the end of this section, and then once I get it covered up, and I didn't realize that the camera had cut off. For some reason, I had turned off all sound from my camera, and so it doesn't beep at me to tell me that the battery's getting low or it's going to turn off. It just turns off, and I was never the wiser, but I fixed that since then. So it'll skip to a photo of the completed layout. You're not missing much about me putting it together here. And then I'll have some still shots of the layout itself at the end of it. And there's the layout completed. I just added a few little embellishment touches, and it's done. Anyway, thanks for sticking around, and thanks for watching my video. I would love it if you would flip me a thumbs up, and I would love it if you would subscribe. Have a great day, everyone.